Born to Achieve. Born to Achieve. Welcome to Born to Achieve podcast, the show that inspires and motivates you to unlock your full potential and achieve your goals. With your host, Warren Andrew Pinder. Let's get started on this week's episode of Born to Achieve. Born to Achieve.
On this episode of the Born to Achieve podcast, I am excited to announce it's the 75th episode. To make this milestone epic, I have as my very special guest Sir Franklin Wilson, chairman of Ararock Homes and the Sunshine Group of Companies. Sir Franklin is known to make things happen. Today, he will share with you on the very important topic, how to achieve a home. Sir Franklin, this is the 75th episode of my podcast, the Born to Achieve podcast show, which I'm trying to encourage persons to unleash the power within to fulfill their dreams and achieve their goals. That being said, home ownership is one of the greatest achievement one can aspire. I see you as my mentor. I see you, sir, as probably the foremost person that can speak to this, assisting a person in achieving that goal of home ownership. Tell me, sir, how can a person make home ownership happen?
Well, firstly, let me do two things. Firstly, let me congratulate you on this podcast. For those who may be hearing this for the first time or do not know, this podcast is being hosted by a tremendous human being. I want everyone who's hearing this to understand that Andrew Pinder is no ordinary man. He's just a great individual. And he's very people-oriented. He's worth listening to. So beyond this particular show, I want to encourage all to take this show seriously. The host of this show is a serious man. That's my first point.
Thank you.
With respect to home ownership, the fact of the matter is, so much in life begins in the mind. You know, you gotta want something, you gotta see something that's worth aspiring for. You know, it begins in the mind. You gotta see yourself in your home. I happen to be the chairman of Ararock Homes. I remember a gentleman coming in our office one day and he said, Mr. Wilson, he said, when he went and told his son, we moving. His son says, Daddy, we moving. He said, when his son asked him that, he says, that's the last time he was going to ever move again, other than in his own house. That encounter with his son got him out of that trap of just moving from one rented house to the next rented house. So many people, the question about home ownership, like anything else in life, you gotta want it. You gotta see it as important. And the question about home ownership, so in my opinion, I think it's important. You gotta want it. You gotta see it as important. I tell you another point. I've made a note. We've been doing this at Ararock Homes for a long time. I have found, Andrew, the statistics so often, if you see a male and a female walk in this house, in our office, and there's a little baby, more often than not, the man is holding the baby. The man holding the baby. Right. So, I'm not being gendered, whatever it is, but the fact of the matter is, more often than I find, men take a little longer to get the message, right, than that woman.
That's right.
Takes a little longer. That's my experience. So, particularly men, see home ownership as part of your sense of manhood. See this, you know, I mentioned the guy who come in here and says, Daddy, we moving again. The man's powerful. You know, I ain't moving no more, okay? That idea of when you get around, man, you holding that baby and this woman there. Man, gentlemen, trust me, if you're really serious about wanting a home, just envision envision yourself in there. You walking into our homes, or wherever.
Mm-hmm.
You walking into the company that could get you a house. You holding a baby. And just think of how that affects so much. So that's where I think it begins.
So Milton has a powerful analogy. And you're saying that sitting as the chairman of Ararock Homes,
Yes.
and me being able to work with you for the past 24 years,
Yes.
I know how many persons we have touched.
Yes.
But when we really look and we ask, right, when should a person begin to set that goal? You know, is it a particular age?
Well, let me put it this way. See, while home ownership may be the biggest single thing, generally speaking, I mentioned the power of the mind.
Right.
The power of the mind to get anything so often begins with something called discipline. Discipline. If you have discipline, so much becomes possible. Home ownership just being one of those things.
Correct.
Okay? So the question becomes really, the question you ask is almost like, when do I start to have discipline? Well, Christ, the sooner the better.
Exactly.
The answer is the sooner the better.
Exactly.
Discipline. So the question becomes, what is discipline? And discipline is, someone said it, a former commissioner of police, Lady L. Thompson, who was in fact the first Bahamian commissioner of police.
Okay.
I heard him say it one time. I didn't create this. He has said it 50 odd years ago, and I adopted it. Discipline is deferred gratification. What do I mean by that? If you want to save for anything, you got to decide that I want this tennis, I want a beer, I want whatever I want. But the discipline comes in. I prefer to defer that.
Thank you for joining today's podcast. We'll be right back.
Achieve Men, written by Warren Andrew Pinder. In this book, you will learn the 7 steps to achieving your dreams and goals. Given the vision to share how the acronym of the word achieve can be used systematically in your day-to-day life. Each of us is given a unique gift from God. Get your copy today. Available in print, ebook, and audiobook from Amazon.
We now return to today's podcast.
I need no extra shoes. Right? I need another beer. Whatever it is. It could be big, it could be small. The fact of the matter is, you prepared to deferred gratification. Women, so often, you go shopping. Not because you want something, but it's sort of like someone make you angry, and somehow shopping, spending money, make you, whatever. My point is, deferred, put off that thing that you think can give you gratification.
Exactly.
Now. That's the first. So when Andrew, you begin that journey to home ownership, is when you start to come to grips with discipline.
Right.
And the discipline allows you now to save.
Right.
See, because if you don't buy a house, you need a deposit. And to get that deposit, you gotta save.
Right.
And to save, you need discipline. So you see why I begin with discipline.
Exactly.
Having the savings is the outcome from having that discipline. The longer you are disciplined, the more you save.
And that can start at any age.
The sooner the better.
Someone can aspire at 18.
The sooner,
to
me, the sooner the better.
Exactly.
The sooner the better.
Exactly.
And also, it's also a case of never too late.
Exactly.
The sooner the better, but it's also never too late. So there might be some older people watching, listening to this program.
Yes.
The fact of the matter is, don't care what, it ain't too late.
That's right.
Don't care what mistakes you made in the past. You ain't got to keep making the same mistake.
Yeah. And start with discipline.
You can start the discipline and it ain't never too late.
Yes.
It ain't never too late.
You know, what's so I've heard that phrase, right? But it said delayed gratification.
Yes.
Right? And that's really speaks to a lot of us in our needs and our wants.
Yes.
But putting aside that of our goals because we're not going to meet our goals because of us not really being disciplined.
Discipline. You don't need it now. See,
Exactly.
Before we started this show, you were talking about the power of now.
Exactly.
Now is like a coin with two sides. The fact of the matter is, discipline says you don't need it now. That's the discipline part.
Right.
When you have the power to make that judgment and live with that. The flip side of that coin is some things are time sensitive. You got to do it now.
Exactly.
So the question is the sooner the better.
Exactly.
So the power of now works in two ways. And how you deal with that is judgment. See, that's judgment. The fact of the matter is the judgment to say, I don't need now that extra this, whatever that extra this is. Beer.
Right.
Whatever it is.
Right.
I don't need that right now.
Right.
Okay? But the other side is, I do need to do something positive now.
Mm-hmm.
I need to stop putting it off. That's also discipline.
Right.
I need to stop putting off. I need to start doing
Things
now.
This leads us right into my last question to Franklin.
Yes.
And we speak about now.
Yes.
What is the importance of you looking into achieving a home now compared to 3 years or 5 years down the road?
Well, there are several reasons. Firstly, one thing I can guarantee you, based on all my years of experience, 3 years, those can be more expensive.
Exactly.
3 years, it can be more expensive. 2, 3 years from now, it means that when you go to the bank for a mortgage, you have 3 years less to pay back.
Exactly.
So, because the bank says, if you were the same age, we could lend you the money for 25 years, maybe even 30 years.
Right.
If you're 3 years old, they make you only get 22 years. Well, it can take you a lot more every month
Right.
in payments. It can make you harder to qualify for any mortgage
Yes.
the longer you wait. Home ownership is one of those things where now is very, very powerful. Because delayed, that's 3 more years of rent,
That's right.
which could have been mortgage payment.
That's right.
So when it comes to home ownership, now is an extremely powerful concept. Because the longer you wait, the more difficult is you making it for yourself.
Okay.
That's the bottom line. The longer you wait, the more difficult it's going to be.
That's right. So Franklin, I'm speaking to those persons that really may not know exactly where they are, right? They know what they want,
Yes.
but don't know how simple it is, as you have put it, to achieve that of which everyone wants, shelter, just basic necessity of
Yes.
shelter,
Yes.
right? Your advice here is so pertinent that someone can actually begin now by simply practicing the discipline,
Discipline.
right? The discipline to make it happen now. Like
Now.
you said, that's your mantra, to make it happen now.
No.
What do you have to lose? I mean, just fit that car, fit that pair of shoe, that hairstyle,
Right.
and begin, practice the discipline to put you in a position
Right.
of home ownership, achieving home ownership. That's why I thought it was so
Yes.
important
Yes.
at the right time. At this 75th episode
Yes.
of me trying to get persons to actually achieve what it is that they want, their goals, their dreams, fulfillment.
Yes.
And I really thank you for this opportunity to sit down, the time you've taken to sit down and doing so. And I think a lot of persons would have gotten a lot out of this, Franklin.
Well, let me end by saying I thank you for what you do.
Yes, sir.
Allow me to end the way I began. People who listen to your show, please take Andrew Pinder serious.
Thank you.
This man cares about people. He talks sense. He's got the right values. If you keep listening to this podcast, you'll be a better person. I guarantee you that.
Thank you.
If you listen to Andrew Pinder, you're going to be a better person. Thank you much.
Thank you.
Thank you for tuning in to this episode of Born to Achieve. Born to Achieve. We hope you found it informative, inspiring, and motivating. Born to Achieve. If you enjoyed this episode, please share it with your friends and family. Stay focused on your goals, and we'll see you on the next episode of Born to Achieve. Born to Achieve. Born to Achieve. Born to Achieve.